This is considered the winter challenge. We're quite fortunate to get the weather that we're actually getting, because next week drops to -22. We'll have many challenges in the next 36 hours that we have to complete, but they're tasks that normal people living like they're homeless will have to do. So finding food, finding shelter, and then using a lot of the nonprofits that support homelessness throughout those 36 hours. Am I nervous? I guess you have to be nervous. It's pretty raw to be out there and just be with kids and families and so forth and realize we get to go home after 36 hours. And I mean, this is their daily life, and it's a grind just for us to do it for 36 hours. One of us at a time, and we have to stop halfway during every walk.
We're going to face these challenges today, and
it's freezing. And just knowing what we did before and how difficult it was to, say, access bathrooms. I think since COVID, I think things are much more shut down for people who have to use public facilities. And that is something that I've thought about a lot, how much you have to walk, and the Saskatchewan wind. So, and the fact that people just don't have adequate outerwear or protection. I mean, we have a very harsh climate.
450. Jocelyn, it was 464.
Well, Brittany is back. So I am a pregnant person who has lost 3 of her children to social services because I lost housing and have substance use issues. So I'm trying to sort of get back on track. So that's my goal, is to have a safe pregnancy, but also to get my life in order and to get my children back. And I know that the most basic part of that is actually finding a home, because until I have a home, I'm not going to be able to accomplish any of these things. So that's my goal.
I spend a lot of time on the street talking to the people that are homeless, that have addictions and mental health issues. I would say we have seen increases, especially through COVID, coming out of COVID. Our community as a whole, we need to have more attention together to these issues because it has increased.
Well, I'm here because I was supposed to find out about housing, and I have at most $1,200 if I'm on a problem called SED. I'm at Sanctum 1, and I spoke with the housing coordinator, and as a homeless person, she absolutely gave me hope, although I also realized, man, it's a lot to take in. Between, I have no ID, so I have to get a health card, and that takes at least 8 weeks. And I have to remember that I have to fill out the form. After 3 months, I have to hope that I have housing. Otherwise, I'm back at the streets, and we're just at the beginning of winter. What happens when it's January?
When you're unhoused, there is a lot of challenges to face, to put together a suite of services, not just to survive, but then to transition. And there is such a lack of shelters, never mind transition housing.
Have you had any beds available for a female and a male?
No, we are full right now.
The reality is in Saskatchewan, we have one of the highest rates of HIV.
HIV wasn't like it was 30 years ago.
I think it's important to recognize that we need to raise one another up. We're not succeeding if we're not all succeeding.
We have record numbers of homelessness now. We have people who have been housed for 5, 10, 15 years who are now suddenly finding themselves homeless. Just at the Saskatchewan Food Bank, where they served 1,000 people yesterday, which is insane. And you can only visit the food bank twice a month. And so you wonder, what are these people doing the other 28 days of the month for groceries or food? And hopefully they are finding it. But the staff here is amazing. They just need all the support the community can give them. And if you have extra money or extra can of goods and you need to give it to someone, give it to the Saskatchewan Food Bank.
We're at Out Saskatoon, and we learned about sexually transmitted diseases. It's disheartening to see that things have gone backwards a little bit.
But sex is still very stigmatized. And anything out of sort of that heterosexual.
The sexually transmitted diseases in Saskatoon are off the charts. Syphilis a few years ago, there was 8 incidents per 100,000. Now there's almost 2,000 per 100,000. So it's just ridiculous.
Everything we've been to, it's underfunded. It's chaos from an organizational perspective.
It's Band-Aid solutions.
The amount of problems they have is sexually transmitted disease. COVID was a big part of that. Everyone was testing for COVID. They weren't testing for sexually transmitted diseases. Therefore, you didn't know you had it, and you're passing it along. So the message is, if you're engaging in sexual activity, make sure it's safe.
I'll start with detox. Yan Martel gets to go to detox tonight.
That's indoors.
That is indoors.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bye, Morgan.
The YWCA is Leanne and Annette. The Salvation Army shelter will be Greg and Morgan. And outside is Jocelyn, Todd, and Lawrence. Knowing that your friends are going to be on the street, if you have anything that might be of aid to them, perhaps provide them with it.
Realize that the system that you set up for us was saying how broken it was. 4 years ago, we could check off a task that we'd done. This way, you couldn't.
Just as the sun is going down at the end of the day and it's getting a little colder, we were assigned our sleeping arrangements for the night, and I'm going to be sleeping outside. It's going to be cold. I have many, many, many layers, and I have many friends who have offered me many more layers, so I think I'll be okay.
I like being in control. And usually I'm able to problem solve to where I am in a control position. This I don't have as much control on. It's like, this is where you're sitting. Who's going to sleep beside me? I don't know.
Yeah.
How close am I going to be to Morgan? I might be closer. I think everybody wants change, but they always want somebody else to do it. I mean, I just know that even through my sphere of influence and sharing what I've been trying to share, there's a lot of people that reach out and say, hey, I want to be part of the solution. It doesn't make sense that we don't start putting these things together.
The safety concerns, I think, are different outside versus inside.
We had to access a bunch of services through the day, but they have very limited hours, of course. So then you're rushing to not miss that opportunity. But then after all of those places close, there's absolutely nothing going on. So then there's a lot of downtime. In the spring and the summer, you can be outside. But now you just want to go where it's warm and safe. So yeah, you just got to kind of hunker down and make a plan for the night. You just cannot believe that this is going on in your own backyard, and why can we not do things collectively as a society to take concrete steps to solve this problem? These are human beings. I mean, if you saw a stray dog on the corner, you would stop, and people do not stop. And this has to come to an end.
Okay. All right. Good night. Thank you.
Probably go up next to the hospital, a little higher ground. The cold air will probably want to slink down in the bottom here. So it'll always be colder there, so we'll try and go up a little higher, and maybe some lights close by, so we'll see how it goes.
Step away from the gray car.
This was the part I was hoping to get picked to do this, because this is the winter challenge. This is ground zero for what people have to experience all winter long.
It's a little chilly, but we're going to give this a shot.
I think awareness is just the beginning. I think we all have to do something. I mean, we have to pick something in our neighborhoods or with your charity, with your church, with whatever you're doing. You have to find some way to impact the humanity around you.
We woke up at 4, and that's when we were cold enough, and so that's when we went to City Hospital, warmed up till 5, and then they wanted us out of there by 5:30 because staff was coming in and they were a little intimidated by us in the front entrance. Now we're just trying to find another place to warm up, but all the automated teller foyers are locked, and so we're just wandering aimlessly like homeless people. Right now we're at Tim Hortons, and we thought we could come in and sit down, but they have the seating area all blocked off. So we are now searching for a different place to rest.
We got up around 6. We had access to a bathroom and a toothbrush, so that was amazing. We honestly could have showered if we wanted to. They have laundry facilities there. And then we just started walking here. It's a bit of a hike. And I think that if you were, unwell or ill or disabled, it would be hard to get here for breakfast. But we were here just shortly after 7:30, and then I had a Friendship Inn coffee, which was great. And then we had a pancake breakfast with little sausages, which was delicious.
Everybody's ins and out, going for smokes, opening this, opening that, grabbing a drink of water, checking people in. It was interesting. We went to bed and there was 4 guys beside us, and there was another 13 guys in the same room in cots when we woke up. I think that we have to look at all the roadblocks that's being put in place because of COVID. That's against a society that's already hurting.
So one of our tasks today was to go to the Westside Clinic and seek a referral to prenatal outreach. We were incorrect about the time that the clinic opened, and that's fair, and that happens. The clinic opened 30 minutes later than we thought, but at the same time there was already a lineup, and there was already somebody there who needed assistance and was in some distress. And also the clinic was a bit under-resourced as it happened this morning, and so all of these things lined up to make it challenging for everybody to sort of get their needs met. Perinatal outreach is really the step that is outside of medical care that helps provide the supports that women need to get all the things that will land in the best and the healthiest outcome for themselves and for their babies. And one of the great things about PORT is the deep, deep personal intensity of the resources that are provided to these women that allow them to be successful.
Would that be a place that would allow my baby to come as well when the baby comes?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. It all depends on you and your substance use and whether or not it would be a safe environment for baby.
Morris and I decided to go to the mental health and addictions office at the Sturdy Stone building. That was in many respects kind of an alienating experience because we were put in a room with a phone, a pen and some paper, and a sheet that told us what number to call into central intake services, and nobody was available to talk to us. So the fact that maybe in my persona I had a moment of clarity where I wanted to go avail myself of mental health and addiction services, and that was the experience, I think that opportunity would likely have been lost for some time.
Now we're at the Francis Morrison Library, which I realize is an invaluable resource if you're homeless. First of all, because it's warm, but also they have a phone. They have a phone you can use for free. And so many things you can only access if you have a phone. And I got an appointment for St. Paul's Hospital later today through this phone here and find out information about heart. Get an email address. You often now have to have a phone so they can text you a verification code. Well, if you don't have an email address, if you don't have a phone, you can't get that verification number, so you can't even get an email address. So there's so many of these little barriers that are not unbridgeable if you have a degree of wherewithal, but if you are challenged, if you are struggling, it's the sheer accumulation of them, at one point you just want to give up.
Many of the challenges that we're given are made so much easier by the fact that we're paired or with other people. And when you see people like we saw this morning, it's the aloneness of that that is most distressing to me, because no one is looking out for that person except that person. Whereas I know that many people were looking out for me. And I think that if people are alone, those are truly our most vulnerable, and that's where we need to do better.